The shut the fuck up method is not repression, it's mindfulness. The practice of not gossiping, like you're not really doing it for them, man. You're doing it for you. Most people, when they're like super reactive on survival, they're operating from these three. That's why we're always on the jump. As we start almost like detoxifying ourselves from speaking negatively, right? We're gonna start operating from these three energy centers: the heart, the throat, and the third eye, more so than these survivors. Remember, you're the observer. You see a behavior, you call it out mentally, but the minute you express it out, you're cementing it. We're not gonna understand anyone by speaking. We're gonna understand people by listening. So we gotta listen.
Really excited to talk about the shut the fuck up method. And in a nutshell, for me and like people, is the shut the fuck up method the idea that we all need to stop living in what like Dr. Joe Dispenza calls the familiar past, because it rewires and continuously wires that negativity back into our biology. Is that the gist of what the shut the fuck method is?
Yeah, that is part of the gist. And it also dives into the addiction that we have to our emotional states. So, the genesis of the book actually came from working with Dr. Joe. And I just started noticing how, whether it was participants or staff, the complaining wouldn't stop. And I'm like, well, here we have this guy like telling us that we're rewiring and cementing these stressful hormones in our body. And then we turn around, we're like, that's amazing. Like, fuck, where's the food? And I'm like, oh my God. And then I started thinking of like, because we're in a culture where everybody's like, oh, you got to speak your mind. You got to get up and stand up and stuff. But then also there's a difference between speaking your mind and just going through an addiction following an emotional addiction and staying in a loop of complaining. You know what I mean? So the shut the fuck up method is not repression, it's mindfulness.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you're on a diet or a fast, right? And your friend is like, hey, come pick me up, and I'm at a pizza party, but come inside. You wouldn't go inside the pizza party and be like, why should I repress myself from having pizza? You know what I mean? You commit to your goal, which is your fitness or whatever. So that is the same metaphor to the method. It's like, if your goal is to break patterns and to have transformation in your life, then you have to be mindful you have to close your mouth, because you can take all the courses and read all the books, but if you're still complaining, you're still cementing those pathways of the life that you don't want.
I love that. And what I'm really excited about is like you're my friend and you came up with this yourself. And like I know a lot of like mindfulness techniques, and like this book actually reminded me like the basics of. Have you read The Power of Now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this reminds me a lot of The Power of Now. But what you give are a lot of like really cool like advice on like how to deal with interpersonal relationships or with yourself. So I like it because it's very practical. You know, you did the 10 commandments. What are they called?
The 10 shut the fuck up commandments.
The 10 shut the fuck up commandments.
Yeah.
So I like that because it actually gives you some like practical advice. You know, with a lot of the spiritual books, there's not really, they give you like the very deep esoteric foundation. And then there's not a lot of like, hey, when you're going to talk about someone, don't use their name, or, these things like.
Oh my God, I'm going to take you on my book tours. Like this guy, he knows what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
no, you nailed
what
it.
I really appreciate about the book is it's like very specific advice. And I kind of, it was so funny. Last week I had an incident where like I broke your first 2 rules. So when I was reading the book, I was like, oh, that's good advice. And I broke that shit last week. So I kind of wanted to just kind of go because with those first 2, the first one is, don't use someone's name if you're gonna, vent. And number 2 is vent to one person. And to me, like, I was like, fuck yeah, Jorge, like, I've never heard that advice before. So it's like refreshing to be like, hey, if you have an issue, obviously, like, I'm not a suppressing person, but it gave me some tools, and I think, like, as a man, to vent even properly. And like, I've talked about this before on the podcast, that like, as men, we want to be seen as like reliable and like sturdy, so we don't want to seem unstable and grounded when we vent. We want to, give that at least a perception of like, hey, we're strong, you can rely on and depend on us. But obviously, I teach people to like go to men's retreats and vent, or have a best friend or father to vent to. And this just gave me even more tools. So let's start with number 1 and 2. Don't use somebody's name and vent to one person.
Yeah. So not using somebody's name. So let's say you and I have Mike, who's our friend in common, right? Yeah. So Miguel, me, and Mike, yeah, we're the three amigos. Sure. And I'm noticing and I'm experiencing that every time I hang out with Mike, he's cheap, right? Yeah. And I can have that dynamic with Mike, right? But guess what? I'm responsible for how life occurs to you as well because you're my friend and I want Miguel to have it all, yeah, right? So if Mike is cheap with me, like the minute that I tell you, Miguel, dude, Mike's just always so fucking cheap, right? Like, how do I know he has a different dynamic with you? Maybe with you, he's not cheap, right? But the minute that I infect you with that, then you're going to start subconsciously looking for it. And all of a sudden, boom, Mike is cheap. And then you go back to me like, Coño, Jorge, you're right. Yeah. He's cheap. And then that's what we do so innocently. We go around assassinating people's characters just for the sake of creating really, a conversation, a bonding, a relatability, connection. Yeah. And I just want people to start taking responsibility on how we infect our environment and how very innocently could be like, dude, Mike is so cheap. And now all of a sudden we're creating that reputation about people because now you're going to tell somebody else, you're going to tell, and before that you are seeing Mike that way. So it all goes back to quantum physics, how the observer, you know, that they've done these experiments where you see the atom and the electron, the minute the observer looks away, it disappears. Those all possibilities. So the minute you see and you lock in Mike's particles as like Mike is cheap, boom, he has to occur to you that way. And the more that I go around telling other people, then I'm cementing that that's how he occurs that way as well. So it goes back to personal responsibility. You know, it's like, I don't want to ruin anybody's experience. And if I'm having that experience with him, guess what? I'm gonna actually start committing to being wrong about Mike and be like, you know what? Maybe he did lose his job this week, or maybe, you know, he was raised that way. And the more that I inject empathy and not cement that he's cheap by telling you he's cheap, then all of a sudden I'm opening up the possibility that he starts showing up a different way. So that's the whole reason why we don't use a person's name, unless you want to say that Mike is amazing. Then go around tell everybody he's so it's like describe people as you want them to see, not as the world would agree if it's something that you don't want.
What would you say when we're trying to find a balance in someone's character? Yeah, because sometimes some people are, let's say, like, you know, the trending word like toxic. Someone's just toxic, and you're just like, is it, you know, not speaking about their name, but like, you're like, you know what? I've done my best to see them in the best light I possibly can. Is that the point where you're like, I'm just going to refrain from our friend Mike?
So here's the balance is such a thing, right? It's totally important. So if Mike is toxic, and I walk into a situation where people are like, dude, Mike is so toxic, bro. He's so bitter. I'm just gonna listen, man. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, you know, yeah, man, he's interesting. So what can you say, by the way? So what kind of narrative can you use to not repress, to let it out, but in a way that you're also planting a seed that he could change, right? It's a big difference between somebody's toxic as instead of saying like, you know, he's interesting. Like you could soften that narrative, but guess what? Interesting is a lot less toxic than toxic, and therefore you're leaving room for the possibility that he can start showing up differently. And I always say like, listen, you could have like you could be broke essentially, right? And I'm not saying you need to look at your bank account and be like, oh my God, I have so much money, I'm rich. No, because that's not true. You don't have integrity with that. But you don't have to call all your friends and tell them you're broke either. You see what I'm saying? So it's like I can generally not like Mike and think like, you know what, he's not my vibe. But why do I need to go around telling anybody about it? Yeah, because here's the thing, the minute you call something out, it's like a two-step process. Remember, you're the observer. You see a behavior, you call it out mentally, but the minute you express it out, you're cementing it.
Yeah, you're almost creating like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You're creating that, right? You're literally putting like energy behind it. So now he has to show up that way because you said it. And now you're involving other people with it. Now, going back to what you said about the telling one person, again, it's not about repression, it's mindfulness, right? So I had an issue with a friend a few months ago, and we stopped being friends. And she was like, she had really good reasons why, by the way. And I couldn't say anything. I was just like, wow, I I think you're right. And at first I was like, okay, I don't want to put it out there. It's done. But then I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to repress this. I'm gonna phone my friend. And I called 4 people and I'm like, whoever calls me back, I'm gonna tell them the story. I'm gonna tell them how I feel. Finally, doom, boom, somebody called me back. And I said it. And Miguel was so powerful. I said, okay, so I wrote this book. And then I told him, you're the only person I'm gonna tell this to, okay? And immediately, dude, the listening that person had for me was next level. Cause now they're like, yeah. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm not like I just ordained them. Yeah, yeah. So then I told her the story, bro, and she gave me the best advice and feedback, and I cried. And actually, it bonded us, you know. And I didn't tell the story to trash that other girl. I just told her the story of like how I felt, you know. And whenever I would see her like saying things, oh, but she's this, I would just not add to that because right, you want to be so mindful now. And at the end, dried my tears and I felt amazing. And then my other 3 friends called me and I was like, no, good, I'm good. I only told one person. They're like, are you sure? I'm like, oh, 100%. I'm done, but thank you. And then it made me think of like how powerful it is that I also, we're always teaching something, right? It made me think of how awesome that I'm actually putting that behavior out there for people to keep in mind. Maybe I could just tell one person. Yeah. And not 10 or 15.
And I really like that because you're right. It does create someone, not only for them to feel a little more special, but it does give them like an incentive of like, oh shit, like I better pay attention.
Yeah.
It's like an honor.
Yeah, it is an honor. I mean, to really let your feelings to somebody and for them to know that you're the one creates a really powerful listening, you know?
And as well, it also limits our, at least in the book when I was reading it, it limits that continuous rumination on our problems when we tell Joe, Susie, and Sally. We just keep repeating and repeating and entrenching the same neurological pathways, right? And that's another reason for that.
Yeah, it is another reason for that because imagine you're limiting that addiction to one. You're you're letting it. You have to remember I really do believe we're all emotional addicts to our lives, right? So what do I mean by that? So we energetically create situations with others because we're coexisting to bring us the feelings that we're used to. So if your thing is like you go nuts on the 4 or 5 when you get cut off, like you're addicted to that cortisol that your body makes, that hit of adrenaline that goes to your body, right? So the more that you keep engaging in that behavior, even after you're not in traffic, after 2 hours pass, your body's like, hey, so where is it, bro? Where like, and all of a sudden the guy cuts you off again and you go back to it again. And you find the opportunity and you have to remember the brain, the body doesn't know the difference between something that happened in the past or something that's happening now again. So as we keep retelling those stories of frustration, your body's just like, boom, receiving that shot all over again. So we have to, little by little, just detox the body from the addictions that we have to our lives, to how we feel about our lives.
I love that. And we kind of hit it a little bit already. Number 3, which was no engaging in gossip. You said earlier, like if Mike's cheap or toxic, you just like, oh, that's interesting. And like, I hear you, right? So yeah. Could we kind of, is that still the aspect of not, continuing to like fester the negative emotions in other people and in ourselves?
Yeah, dude, I actually, for this one, I think the Bible kind of had it right. You know how it said, like, love thy neighbor like you love thyself. If I hate you, I hate me. At the end of the day, Miguel, like, in my, a teacher of mine, Byron Katie, used to always say this: no 2 human beings have ever met. It's just my story of you meeting your story of me. So at the end, everything that I have a story of you. Your ex-girlfriend has a story of you. Your new one has a story of you, hopefully better. Your mom, your dad, your enemy, your best friend. Which one of us is right? Maybe all of us are right. Maybe we're just seeing those parts of us that you project into us. So the more that I see a flaw in you and I'm calling you out on it, the more that when you're not around and it's just me in the mirror, I'm going ham. So it's like the practice of not gossiping, like you're not really doing it for them, man. You're doing it for you, because the more that you don't go around criticizing, the more that you're going to be and I'm telling you, I am your beta, your experiment. I've been doing this. I am so much more gentler with myself since I took on the willpower to not talk about others. Like it's just not like I'm just so much easier. And as we get older, the mirror is going to start looking the way it does, and life does, and the metrics, and it's just life is going to have its way with us, right? Because we're letting go of our youth. We're letting go of things that we could do with our bodies. Now we're older. We can't run marathons like we used to, whatever. So we need to start having compassion with others so we can start having it with ourselves, because we're going to have to raise that bar.
So you're saying like gossiping about others leads to criticizing of thyself.
100%. 100%.
I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah, 100%. And then now when I walk into situations, and I have friends that I love dearly, man, that they create camaraderie through gossiping about whoever's not there, right? Like, and it could be funny, like, yeah, it could be funny, but I just feel a lot of compassion, because I know when no one's around, they're going ham on themselves.
Yeah, and you know what? That's good that you bring that up, because I noticed that too. A lot of people bond over like negativity, and you know, it is a bonding feeling when you can like. It does make us like, yeah, fuck him, and then it does bond people better when you kind of like, you know, point at somebody else and kind of bond that way. But that's negative. That's not probably.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, listen, there's no and negative is such a subjective word, right? Because there's really no right or wrong way to do life. We're all actually, and I believe in this so wholeheartedly, we're all doing life the way we should. We just have to remember, we are built to survive. We're not built to be happy. We are like the descendants of, people that were eaten by animals that are like scared. Why do you think little kids are scared of the dark? Nobody taught my little niece to be scared of the dark. We just genetically know that that's when predators come and eat us, right? But the thing is, like, we don't have predators anymore. We got Amazon Prime. We're not surviving anymore. The new survival is, what am I going to do with my life? What's going on in Gaza? Like the news cycle, whatever. So imagine we're these machines that are built to survive, but instead we're trying to survive credit card bills and like the price of gas. So I think that we need to retrain how we speak so that we could live a much more peaceful life. The story of this book, I write it, I put it all over it, is that both my parents died of cancer. My mom 2 years ago, and my dad in 2019. And I'm convinced, after all this research that I did in studying of epigenetics, which is how our environment affects our body, whether it's like the outside environment or our personal environment, like stress, that's what detonates cancer. I mean, cancer is basically your body saying, I can't do this anymore, and it goes back to fight or flight. So fight or flight, it's a great primitive mechanism that we have. It's great if there's a dinosaur chasing you, right? You run, your brain goes on high beta, which you go into full alert, your pupils get dilated, and guess what? Your immune system goes down, because we're a computer. So it's almost like a computer needs to go higher on this and lower on this. Then we escape the dinosaur. 10 minutes later, we're a deer, we're grazing, and all of a sudden now the immune system, we go back into homeostasis, right? And everything's fine. The problem is now, most people are living 70% of their lives in fight or flight. That's not sustainable for the human body. So what happens when we're on fight or flight? Our immune system goes down. Who do you think it's looking after infections and diseases? Our immune system. And that's why I think that we're having this epidemic, because we're so stressed. So my commitment, my legacy on this is just like, it all comes back to the word. I mean, we keep reactivating our own stressful hormones, and we're addicted to the life, like Dr. Joe says, that we don't even like.
Yeah, I like in the book you put like epigenetics is like having firecrackers in the house, which is fine, just not lighting them. So like we all have that potential of destroying ourselves through our immune system by suppressing it, but the stress is
What detonates it?
would detonate the firecrackers.
Yeah. What lights them? So yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with genetic predispositions as long as we're not igniting them. So we always hear this whole thing about obesity or cancer, or whatever's in your genetics. But you know what? If you're living a life where you're not abusing yourself by stressing yourself out, then you're going to be okay. And I'm not saying that. Studies are saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it. The other one is listening.
I love this guy. You did all your. Look at this, reporters and podcasters out there. This guy's your model.
Generosity. This one is the one I was like kind of like confused on. With generosity.
Yeah. So, when I first started the system, right? If you were negative in front of me, I would be like, I'm just gonna like hang up on you really quick, or just be like, well, Miguel, you keep attracting all these girls, that's why this is happening to you.
Right.
Like, and then it didn't really go that well. What I would tell people,
So that's
be
how you first kind
yeah, yeah, because at first you become like, okay, if my environment, if I don't want to let anything negative in my environment, then I don't want to be I don't want it to be near my environment. But as time is progressing, and as the method kind of just melts in with you, I start now. You Generosity is a big thing for me. Like, people are gonna speak and talk about what they want, and at the core of this, everybody is exactly who they should be. Like, I could tell you, Miguel, what you should do with your life is this and this and this, but at the end, you're on your own path. I could only give you my recommendation, but I can't attach myself that you're gonna do that. So if you're the kind of person that's like, every time I see you, you're like, damn, Jorge, it's like, it's so hard out there, like, people are so fake or whatever it is. Like, I can be generous, and just like, okay. And then what I personally do, right, is either I'll change the subject after a while, and then most people won't even notice when you change the subject, by the way. Just change it, because then you could talk about, then they'll be like, oh yeah, it is a pretty day. But then if you keep circumventing back to that negativity, then I just, little by little, have to decide to just, maybe I'm not going to be calling you that much anymore. So the beautiful thing about this method, Miguel, is that it's almost like a crack on the wall. It's just going to keep getting bigger, and it's going to do it by itself. So you don't even have to almost like police it that much anymore, because once you're mindful, it's like you're walking down the street and you see a snake and you freak out, but then you notice it's a rope, and then it's like, try to get scared again. You can. So it's like, once this activates in you, that doesn't mean that you won't gossip ever again, or that you won't be negative again, or whatever, but you'll do it so much differently. Instead of like going on a rant, maybe you'll throw in one word, and then you'll even laugh and be like, that's it, I'm done.
So is for number four, listening with like generosity. Is it listening to people that you love deeply and care about, and then if it keeps happening, maybe you need to refrain from that relationship, or does that mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like, listen, I can meet with you and let you talk about whatever you want, and then after that, I'm gonna make an assessment of, like, you know what, I don't think
I don't want to keep listening
yeah, I
to
don't
that
want to keep
negativity.
listening to it. But that doesn't mean that on that one conversation, I can still be generous.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean by
Be as
generosity
generous as you can
in that moment.
in that moment. If
Yes.
it's like a continual repetitive action of negativity, then you can reassess of like, do I want to keep talking to so and so?
Exactly. Well, then you got to be generous with you. And you can't be selfish with you by putting yourself in situations that you feel are not right for you. Yeah. She's like,
Which is the second or the fifth one, which is seeing all your challenges in a positive light.
yeah, yeah. So everything, listen, we can all go back to everything that's ever happened to us. And in hindsight, 2020, it was the best thing, right? I mean, whether it taught you the biggest lesson, whether that mistake led you to somewhere where you met who you needed to meet, there's no mistake, right? So as something is happening, what if, like, as you're getting a no, you know that it's a yes? What would that be like, And so the goal of the method is to, how can we shorten the refractory period between the occurrence of the yes or the no and the amount of time of the upset. So I'm not saying the goal is to, like, somebody's gonna come and slap you in the face and you're like, oh, like, right, like, oh, you're so not. But what if it's like, you get slapped in the face and it's like, all right, it's not like, this motherfucker slapped me in the face, and who do you think you know what I mean? So that's what I mean, by the way, about the refractory period, is how long are you going to be reactive for? Because there's nothing wrong. Dude, I still get reactive, and it is what it is. But what I've noticed now is that it's so much shorter, and that's what we want. Because if you get reactive for one moment, that's like your fight or flight kicking. But now you know that the more you stay pissed, the more that you're taking your immune system down. So it's like, as a act of generosity and love to you, you'll snap out of it quicker.
Oh, I see. Okay, and this is kind of like the part where I start to see the fundamentals of like the power of now,
Yeah.
where like Eckhart Tolle kind of talks about like creating space between your environment and the reactions to your environment. Like the more you have that I don't call it disconnect, but call it space between whatever happens to you and then you could refrain for a sec and then respond properly. Because if you just allow everything to move your emotional self and move your mind, then you're constantly in a reactive state, and then you live a shittier life, and then you're probably going to do things you will regret.
Absolutely. I think it also has to do with, you know, you've heard of the chakras, right? Like the all seven chakra stuff. So the word in town is that the three primal ones are like, you know, your sexual, your kind of nutrition, like you know, and then defense. Those are your three ones are essentially reproduction, digestion, and defense, the solar, right? And then up here you get the heart, communication, and the third eye, let's say. So most people are like, and I talk about this in my book, but you wouldn't know it yet because I only have 4 chapters out. But if you go on the website, the STFUmethod.com, this was all gonna be at the end, but I'm gonna do it now.
Do it now.
I do it now. If you go STFUmethod.com and you sign up for the newsletter, you're gonna get the first 4 chapters, and then I'm gonna let you know when the book comes out, which is actually June 8th, which is actually the birthday of my mom. So that's when the book comes out. So she was the biggest inspiration for this book. She died in my arms. She was and is my biggest rock star ever. So basically, as we start almost like detoxifying ourselves from speaking negatively, right? We're gonna start operating from these 3 energy centers: the heart, the throat, and the third eye, more so than the survival. If most people, when they're like super reactive on survival, they're operating from these 3. That's why we're always on the jump. And I want to tie this up to what you were saying before. I didn't just go on a tangent. So the whole thing about the hit, right? The punch is not really the hit. It's actually merciful. What the torturer is the story of the hit.
Right.
Yeah. So let's say we're football players and I freaking tackle you. You're not gonna like go to the coach and be like, "This motherfucker," like it's, and it probably hurt like a mother. But if we're in a relationship and I slap you or tackle you, right? Then you're gonna call your best friend. You're gonna call your mom. You're gonna call like the police. And not that you shouldn't take action, by the way. Like if somebody's hitting you, be like, "Oh wow, I'm really not into, you know, baseball bats in my head, so I'm gonna go." There's a way that you could actually be more like proactive and not make it like you could be actually really efficient when somebody hurts you. But the point is that it's the story we tell ourselves about the situation that hurts, not the actual act. A hit is 1 second. The story of the hit is what hurts.
Right. And
I think that was deep. That made sense. Did that make sense?
that doesn't make
Yeah.
It's nice when we have the ability to do that, right?
Yeah.
To be able to be so objective and have so much space within ourselves.
Oh, beautiful. Beautifully
To be able
said.
to have that, because sometimes, even in my life, like it's been a fucking process to be able to be like, all right, that happened. Like, it's like, do I want to continue telling myself this fucked up story, or just like how you said, do I want to see this in a different light?
Yeah.
Right. Let me adjust this camera one more time.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one?
Yeah, I love this one. So, you know, most people operate as, let's call it, the dynamic we have of our lives is world word, right? So we see the world and we describe with our word what we see, and we need to upgrade that to word world, meaning we say what we want to see, right? And that's what
What we see.
yeah, word world, right? And this I got from, I used to study a lot of landmark education, and they had this whole thing. So basically, we treat our lives like we're like CNN or Fox News reporter, like, oh, well, here's my shitty couch with my shitty husband with my shitty job, and we keep cementing that that's our things instead of like speaking of how we want things to be, or at least guess what? If he is a shitty husband, just shut the fuck up. Like the more that you tell everybody what a bad guy he is, we're cementing it. So the more that we're telling ourselves like how scary the world is and how Gaza is gonna kill everything and how everything's, the more that you experience, the more that you're gonna live in that reality, and the more that you're gonna attract that. The news thing is fascinating to me, and I talk about this in the book, and I really give like a kind of like a juicy, fun and I call it a fun example if you can see it that way, because listen, at the end of the day, like the news media, it's a business. It's not personal. And guess what? We're so wired for survival topics. Why do you think we watch bad news? Because our survival mechanism says if you know where there's problems, you're going to be safe. So our own fight or flight is advising us subjective, go watch the news, like watch. And you don't think CNN looks at the ratings and notice that when they talk about war and rape and murder, like the ratings go up? And if I'm Toyota or Google and I'm talking to the sales rep at CNN, I'm like, well, what happened around 10 o'clock that it spiked up so high? It's like, oh, that was because it was the war and murder stories. I like that. Keep them up. So then now they have to populate the channel with those news. They're not doing it to kill us, but it's a business. They're not in the business of your personal stress. They're in the business of eyeballs, right? So the news is feeding our primitive survival mechanism that we need to be safe. And I talk about this in the book. The irony is that very primal survival mechanism, fight or flight, that's trying to keep us safe, is essentially what's killing us. And to me, that is like, ooh, I get goosebumps even saying it, because it's so backwards, and it's almost like it's almost like this little kid is driving the car, and we need to like be like, no, give me the steering wheel, and we need to do that now. It's almost like this little kid is driving the car, and we need to like be like, no, give me the steering wheel. That now.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Kind of, because when I was reading the book, it said world, world, and I was like, oh shit. So just for myself here.
Yeah.
So when you say world, word, that means I see the world and I speak of the world like
I'm gonna take you on every book tour. You're coming with me.
Upon what I want to see and speaking of it that way. Okay.
I'm gonna take you on every book tour. You're
good.
coming with me.
I was just trying to understand that one. Honestly, I was a little confused on it, so I was like, I'm glad.
Yeah.
What came to my mind when I saw that was like speaking on the world the way I want to see it.
Yeah.
So, but no, but so like, let's say when I was reading the book, I was thinking like, okay, so like if I just did a podcast with you, Jorge.
As you should.
I'd be telling people like, dude, I had the sickest podcast. I gave Jorge the best podcast he's ever had.
Oh yeah, by the way, if something, I'm telling you, the audience, if something is okay, not even that great, motherfucker, you go say it was amazing. I'm telling you. Look, all right, I did it this New Year's Eve, dude. I went to Uruguay, spent it with my friends and their kids. And, kids are kids. And they're like 17, 16, 15. And at first, kids are teenagers. And I was like, no, this is not. I'm going to prove my book. I was writing the book. And I started telling my friends, right, the parents, I was like, oh, my God, your kids are amazing. Oh, man. And Thomas is taking care of his sister and all that. And then they would kind of overhear it. It's like, energetically you say something and then matter has to like go. Dude, they were sending me emails at the end of the thing saying, Uncle Jorge, we love you. We love you. Yes. And they were, and I know, and I love them. They were okay. But at the end of the trip, they ended up being amazing because I stopped describing it the way I was seeing it. I started describing it the way that I wanted to see it. And it turned out that way. So that's what I'm telling you. When you like something, beef that up and take a moment during the day, pause and be like, oh, man, my life is amazing. Look, like, you can hear the birds singing. My life's amazing. You start putting that out there and it's like emotional and energy equity. And it just starts to get like the universe is like, well, we got to prove them right. This motherfucker's saying all this shit. It works. And energy equity, and it's just starts to get big. Like the universe is like, well, we gotta prove it right. This motherfucker's saying all this shit. Yeah, it works.
I love that. Have you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Yeah. On the preface of that book by Stephen Covey, he kind of covers that. Where did you read that part?
Yeah.
Where like the son is shitty at baseball, and they treated him like he was shitty. They got him lessons, like why you suck.
The thing is like, man, if you guys really want to go down, obviously this rabbit hole. I mean, you're awesome, man, because you're a source of all the book. We're like, oh, and the 7 Habits and Napoleon Hill. You have them all, right? Because that's essentially what this book is, by the way. It's a cliff note. The cover is orange and black to subconsciously let you know this is an idiot's guide / cliff notes of all these things that you and me and probably a lot of your viewers watch and read. But it really goes back to, Miguel, if I can sum up, our goal is to operate less and less out of survival. And I'm going to get into the topic of meditation because I'm telling you, and I know a lot of people, meditation is probably the most triggering thing for the survival mechanism. Try to close your eyes anywhere. Survival is like, but the more that you start instilling this practice, the more that you're not going to be in survival. So everything that we're talking about on like, be positive, don't gossip and all that, meditation is what's going to give you the toolbox. So it's a lot easier to do. So listen, 5 minutes, bro. Start with 5 minutes. Go on YouTube. Get a free, get a waterfall, whatever. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff. Sometimes I do an hour meditation, but honestly, I've been doing just 15 minutes. I don't know. Is 15 minutes a lot for you?
Yeah. So what I did myself, just
Got it. Yeah. An hour meditation, but honestly, I've been doing just 15 minutes. I don't know. Is 15 minutes a lot for you?
Yeah. So what I did myself, just for
Yeah. No, go slow. Start with 5. Start with 5, but it makes such a difference when it makes a real difference. And of course, I do a lot of it, but that is what, it's almost like the book and all these books, like Eckhart Tolle and everybody, they're just like great, almost like workout tips, but meditation is what gives you the muscle so you could have that endurance to do those workouts. I've never said it that way, but it is. It's what gives you that fitness. It gives you the muscle or the fitness so you could do those workouts. Because I can tell you right now, everything you need to do to get abs, but if you don't have the endurance or at least enough to start, then you'll be like, no, I'm just gonna watch Netflix,
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I can't speak enough of the gifts and how incredible meditation is to live this way. Watch Netflix,
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I can't speak enough of the gifts and how incredible meditation is to live this way. Yeah. It gives you that space. Yeah, it gives you the strength so you could be calm when there's the traffic or your best friend screaming at you or whatever. And again, start with 5 minutes. And you want to do this. I've done a lot of research to do this 5 minutes when you wake up. That's when your brain is in theta, which is the state of your brain, which is most suggestive. So that's why if you get anything out of this podcast, try not to watch the news first thing in the morning or when you go to bed at night, because that's when you're about to go into your subconscious sleep states. And that's when your brain is sucking it all in. So if you got to watch the news or whatever, maybe throughout the day, see what's going on. But you want to be really mindful of what you consume media-wise right in the morning and right at night. Yeah, you're more suggestive. What's going on? But you want to be really mindful of what you consume media-wise right in the morning and right at night.
Yeah, because you're more subjective.
Yes.
Yeah. Is listening, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like this goes part of the core message of the book, right? Silence your way to the life of your dreams. And I think that we've reached a state of society in the world, like, you got to speak your mind. You got to be like, no, we actually have to listen more. Because when we listen more to other people, I know. A state of society in the world, like, you got to speak your mind. You got to be like, no, we actually have to listen more. Because when we listen more to other people,
that's good. Yeah, that's good. No, I like that because now, especially this past couple 2-3 years, everything's been so like chaotic on the news, and then
yeah. I think we're not gonna understand anyone by speaking. We're gonna understand people by listening. So we gotta listen. That was good. I think that's it. Next. Yeah, exactly, right? You're not going to understand by speaking. So we got to listen. Imagine like, no.
That was beautiful.
Next. Yeah, exactly, right? You're not going to understand by speaking.
You're not.
Imagine like, no.
That's what kind of bothers me with like the politics of today. It's like a lot of people.
You want me to just give you I'm going to give you the golden rule of politics right now? Are you really ready for it?
Sure. Let's go. Let's see.
Everyone is right.
Everyone is right.
Okay. Everyone is right for them. And we'll never really know the truth. Everyone is right. So stop fucking pretending that it's not Star Wars. And by the way, I'm not saying not to vote. I'm not saying not to express yourself. You can do whatever you want, but to get into those heated arguments with I have family, we all have family members that are one side or the other side. It's like, why? Why are you going to spend any moments trying to defend something that you really don't know for sure? And again, people might disagree with me, and that's okay. Like everyone has their opinion, you know. Everyone, we can all agree to disagree, and I believe in a more consciousness. Look, consciousness created Biden, and consciousness created Trump, and whoever wins is the one that's supposed to win. I'm sorry, because even if it's a fuck up, we're gonna get a lesson that we needed to get. And if you look at everything that's happened, all the atrocities in the world, they led us to lessons that we needed to get. So it's part of the plan. And if you look at everything that's happened, all the atrocities in the world, they led us to lessons that we needed to get.
Yeah.
So it's part of the plan.
Yeah, it's also more about our spiritual journey because we're all equal at the spiritual level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the closest thing we can get to figuring it out is agree to disagree.
From the same source, so we have to figure that out.
Yeah.
That journey is more important.
Yeah. And I think that the closest thing we can get to figuring it out is agree to disagree.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Number 8 is gratitude, and this one's very cool because we kind of bonded over this this specific topic.
Yeah.
You know, Toda with our friend Ruben. So, you know, gratitude. I'm glad you mentioned that, and gratitude has been cemented in my life. It's so crazy. I never told you this, but you know, when we work with Ruben, who's your neighbor, who has a son named Noam, who has autism, and you know, the method of Toda, of continually saying thank you for the challenges, the good and the bad and the ugly. I took it upon myself for the past, how long has it been since we've done that?
Probably like a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
So every day I wake up with gratitude, and then I set 5 alarms every day to be grateful for whatever's going on. And I've done that for the past year and a half, and my whole life has changed. Like, and then now gratitude is literally in my nervous system, where I feel when anything good happens or bad, like my automatic instinct is to be like, thank you. Thank you. Like I'm grateful, like that I can hear birds outside, that I got sun in my face, that I got water to drink. Or that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Gratitude is the highest state of receivership. You want things to come, be in gratitude. I mean, listen, Miguel, like, so I've been really involved with Dr. Joe's work, and now I'm in the medical team, and I help people. You know, I take care of people that have like MS or people that have Parkinson's. So I get a person that I'm their caretaker. Man, like the last time I went, I had this amazing guy that he literally, it's almost like his parking, like imagine saying like, oh, I want to get up and go there. And then you go like this and your body goes, nope. So it's like, of course, I've been injected with so much perspective. Whatever I think it's missing in our life, whatever you think, I think it's missing in our lives, we are so blessed. The fact that you can get up whenever you want or breathe whenever you want. And listen, at the end of the day, it's like, even if you can't get up, whatever it is, we all have amazing things to be grateful for, because the senses, right? And I talk about this, the 5 senses, smell, touch, feel, taste, hear. They're great, but they're so seductive, and they're the ones that are keeping us in a way trapped in this matrix of like, okay, once I get the money, once I get the relation, once my body's healed, once my health is healed, then I'll be happy. But as we all know, the mind recalibrates and goes, no, wait, no, I didn't want that girl. I wanted a girl with like the trust fund. That's the one I wanted. And then you get her, no, but I wanted the girl with the trust fund that wasn't an alcoholic. No, it wasn't. So it's like, to how long are we going to wait until we realize that this moment is perfect the way it is? And it's the only thing that's real. I mean, a truck can come tomorrow and party's over. You know, so going back to gratitude is almost like the exercise that makes us feel whole for life being the way it is right now. It reminds us of that. Going back to gratitude is almost like the exercise that makes us feel whole for life being the way it is right now. Yeah. It reminds us of that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And anyone who's struggling with gratitude, a little tip that actually helped me was like, sometimes I was just in a shitty day, but I was able to be grateful for breathing, or for being able to just look and see things. And once you kind of change your awareness into those just small things, like fuck, I could breathe. Like the opposite comes true, where it's like, what if I couldn't breathe? Oh, that would suck. Like, but I can breathe, and then your brain starts to like automatically shift, and you're like, and like a gentle snowball starts to come of, feeling.
Yeah. I really believe in that saying, like, the universe first whispers, and if you don't pay attention, it'll knock. And then if you don't, it'll knock hard until you finally get it. And I talk about it in this book. I had one of my spiritual leaders was this woman that she lost her daughter when she was 10. The daughter was in a car accident. And man, and she said this, dude, and it's so profound. She said, no parent should have to lose their child to learn to learn the lesson of letting go. Learn how to let go when someone cuts you off the road. Don't let it escalate to losing a child. Because when you do lose a child, you will get that lesson. You feel me?
No, yeah.
Again, she's not saying it was a punishment, but it's like, how many little like triggering things happen in our lives? Like, learn them there. Learn them there, because it's almost like when you keep learning them in the smaller ways, then you don't have to go to that bigger test. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because it's almost like when you keep learning them in the smaller ways, then you don't have to go to that bigger test.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're all on that same spiritual journey.
Yeah.
How about now? Now you really have to. You know what I mean? Like, swim. So.
Yeah. And again, it's beautiful, right? Because sometimes when I do get that contrast, like an airline, leaves me stranded in some country, and I have to go to a 1-star hotel, and I didn't go crazy. And guess what? And I didn't go crazy on the ticket agent, right? I didn't go nuts like I used to go nuts. And now I'm in bed and I think of how I didn't go nuts. And I go, oh, man. Yeah. So I'm actually getting more pleasure out of seeing how I didn't react versus getting what I want. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh my God, the whole thing is ridiculous. Seeing how I didn't react versus getting what I want.
Love it.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, a sense of humor also helps.
Oh my God, the whole thing is ridiculous.
When bad things happen.
Oh no, bro. Imagine everything that we say it's horrible could actually be the funniest, like, scene in a movie. Like,
exactly.
Dude, you know what happened to me a month ago? I was in Miami. We were leaving this meditation. We go to a coffee shop. I'm leaving. A crow starts attacking me. Like, I'm trying to get in my car. The crow go, and I was like, oh, and all of a sudden I try to it looks again. And now I'm hiding in the whole restaurant. The street is looking at me like, they're like, people are just like, and I'm like laughing. I'm like, what the? And then the woman across the street is going, he's waiting for you, right? And I look, and the thing is like, and I'm like, wow. And finally a waiter comes out with a tray. He's like, come on. And like now the crow sees that I have backup. So the crow leaves, and I get in my car. And of course, that's when the mind goes, oh my God, does that mean like I'm going to die? So I call my friend Francia, and I'm like, oh my God, Francia, this whole stuff just happened to me. A crow started attacking. And she was like, that means that you're going to manifest everything. And I'm like, you think so? Because I think there's been movies about crows. And she's like, no, that's the universe showing you how powerful you are. And I'm like, I'm going to go with that. But the point is that throughout the whole crow attack, I was cracking up. And obviously, great thing you didn't poke my eyes out. But yeah, everything could be, if you could take everything as like, okay, wow, this is wow, But I actually think it comes after you've been working this muscle out of seeing life this way, and then you're gonna start attracting that perspective, because everything is just your perspective. You know what I mean? You could actually, if you get a flat tire and then your girlfriend leaves you and then you lose your job and then your mom falls off the chair, you could like be like, oh my God, like you could have a laugh attack of like, okay. Like, fuck, why did I get out of bed this morning? You could like be like, oh my God, like you could have a laugh attack of like, okay.
It's like, fuck, here we go.
Why did I get out of bed this morning?
Yeah. And another one for that one is so funny that you said, like, with the people at the restaurant were looking at you. I used to deal with, like, embarrassment. Like, I was just, since I was a little kid, I always was, like, just didn't want to get embarrassed. I probably had a traumatic experience where I got so embarrassed. But doing all this type of work, especially reading The Power of Now, allowed me the space. So if I were attacked by a crow in front of an entire restaurant, my first thoughts typically are like, oh my God, everyone's watching right now. But like now that I know these things, and it's possible for everybody, is create that space, and then you don't allow that thought to be embodied in your spirit.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, there's a lot of crows in this neighborhood. This happened to me in Miami. There's a lot of and now when I walk my dog and I see them around, like my heart races. I'm like, okay, but it's good. Like, like there is a moment that I start walking fast. I never used to walk faster. Now I am. I'm like, okay, but it's good. Like, like there is a moment. Yeah, I think, listen, that one's pretty self-explanatory. I think the more that we, without, getting too, dark, I think like we need to have a healthy remembering system that we're gonna go one day, and I used to, this beautiful friend of mine, Lorraine, that she passed from cancer. She said it best. She said, we're never gonna really live until we accept that we're gonna die. Because when we accept that we're gonna die and we're aware of it at the core, then nothing's going to feel that deep. And we are going to go for things because we're going to go, well, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be here forever. Might as well try that job, try that talent, ask her out. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. Remind yourself that this thing is temporary. So what do you got to lose? Get embarrassed. Job, try that talent, ask her out. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. Remind yourself that this thing. that's so funny, but it's true. Get embarrassed.
Yeah. That's one that I always try to remember because I'm my best self when I remember I'm gonna die. Like,
that's so funny, but it's true.
Yeah, because I'm just like literally like, oh shit, like I don't have to do this. Like I'm gonna die one day. Like I get to do this, or I'll stop fucking doing it. I was working out the other day, and then I was like, oh, I need to work out, then I need to do this. And I'm like, wait, hold on. It's like, bro, like you get to work out right now. Like you're choosing to do this, right? You're choosing to do this. Like you're spending the time of your life right now to.
Yeah. So this is actually, I'm debating what it is going to be the final chapter, but I had a story of a friend of mine that he was telling me about how this authority figure kind of picked on him for something. And in my mind, of course, as he's telling the story, I'm getting ready to tell him, you need to shut the fuck up. And finally, when he finished, I said something like that. I said, like, this is a pattern that you have active. And if you shut the fuck up, you stop. And then he kind of was like, I get it, but I wasn't looking for you to give me advice. I just wanted a safe space to express myself. And I don't really see you that way anymore because every time I talk to you, you're correcting me. So we don't really have a relationship like we used to. And like, it was a bit of an ouch, but it was a great insight of like, I think this goes back to the generosity a bit. It's like, before I tell somebody to shut the fuck up, why don't I shut the fuck up first and then see what's left? Because when we're trying to tell people what to do, we are getting in their space and we're trying to control them. And trying to control someone is that very default setting that we have, right? Trying to control. At the end of the day, it's like, it's a balance, Miguel. And it's a very like, it's a slippery slope because I'm so aware, and I know this, that everyone is exactly who they're supposed to be. So everything that I'm saying are just suggestions that are working for me. And if I tell them, if I give them to you, I don't have any attachment that they're going to work for you. And if you tell them I think you're full of shit and they don't work, I'm going to say you're right. So I think that kind of goes back to, before I tell somebody to shut the fuck up, why don't I listen to my own advice first and then see what's left? So I think that kind of goes back to, before I tell somebody to shut the fuck up, why don't I listen to my own advice first and then see what's left?
Yeah. And what this also reminded me of was this advice from a friend, Owen Cook, and he said, whenever you see someone, whenever we make a judgment, right? Like you see someone who is, being aggressive with a child or a family member or something, before you, like, you'll see that and be like, what a fucking asshole, like being disrespectful to like his family or whatever. Ask yourself, where do you do that in your life? Where in your life are you blinded by familial relationships where you act out? And then you kind of flip the mirror on you, and that.
Absolutely. Listen, at the end of the day, and I mean this with so much love, we're all a bunch of hypocrites, because that same thing that we don't like for our brothers and sisters to do, we're doing them ourselves in some way. If anybody here has an iPhone, we're all like conduits to to work slavery in some capacity, right? I'm not saying like we're bad people or not, but let's all just kind of be honest with ourselves that at some level, and maybe that needs to be more of the empathy conversation of like, I don't know your genetic background or your cultural, or whether it's karma, whatever it is. We need to have more empathy with people. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you go around killing people and you don't go to jail. That's not about that. Like the laws are clear. You stab somebody, you go to jail. You could be Jesus Christ reincarnate, but in this life you're going to jail. So I think it has to do more with the empathy you have for others, which inevitably you give to yourself as well. Yeah. So I think it has to do more with the empathy you have for others, which inevitably you give to yourself as well.
Yeah. And with one of your quotes here, it says, when I think, oh wait, what the heck? I wrote it down wrong. Damn it. And it says, when we are healed when we can think back on a painful event without a hurtful emotion, that's healing.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh fuck, that's beautiful. And like I think we're all in the process of healing of whatever sort, and I like that because these.
Yeah. I think when I can tell a story without the emotion, that's when I know that I'm healed, you know. But obviously, if I'm telling a story about a breakup or something horrible, then and I still feel the charge, it's still in there, and it's not completely black or white, you know. 2 days ago, I was telling a story about a breakup that was once really painful, but now it's not. And there was a moment where I'm like, should I be talking about it? You know, like, am I picking on a scab, right? Or that was about to be, and now all of a sudden it was here. I was like, just grab the knife. Like, so I think that has to do with how, you know, the conversations that we propagate in our lives are so important, Miguel. And if you don't think that, if you don't have anything to add that's going to move the needle forward for your life and others, then shut the fuck up. Our lives are so important, Miguel. And if you don't think that, if you don't have anything to add that's going to move the needle forward for your life and others, then shut the fuck up. Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's literally this whole system is not repression, it's mindfulness. And guess what? It doesn't need to be perfect. And I talk about the last chapter actually covers a lot of this. It's like, so let's say you have a situation with somebody and you told that one person, and something inside of you still telling you, you know what, I need to tell no, that right. Have fun with it. Be like, you know what, I usually do one, but you're my number two. Yeah. And then do that. And guess what, Miguel? Maybe you'll do up to number 4. And that's okay, because the old Miguel used to do 15. And that's still a huge progress. So it's like that crack in the wall. The crack is growing. Little by little, you're going to see, maybe you will get to a place where you won't even need to tell anybody because you'll work it all out. You know what I mean? I think eventually that is what we could do, and I'm not recommending it at all. I think, you know, traditional therapy, talk therapy is great. Do what you have to do, but I think the more that you need outside sources to sort yourself out, the more peace you're going to be able to feel. And then maybe, and we still need community, right? And we still need people I love, but maybe you become that guy that the reason why you're with people is because you're helping them sort themselves out, and it's really not that much about you. Or maybe it's like 20/80, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. The reason why you're with people is because you're helping them. Yeah, we're in the business of scaling our humanity, and I think like just like technology and AI is reaching leaps and bounds, like our spirituality and consciousness, it needs to do that as well, so we know how to handle the opportunities that are going to come our way. It's like our spirituality and consciousness, it needs to do that as well, so we know how to. So the book, you can go on the website stfumethod.com. That's shut the fuck up method. stfumethod.com. There's some videos that links to the YouTube page, the Shut the Fuck Up Method. And then there's the newsletter. You can sign up and then you'll get the first 4 chapters. But the book itself comes out June 8th, which will be on Amazon and other retailers. But Amazon, I think, will be the easiest. And then the audiobook will be out by then as well. Which will, of course, I read it. I mean, with this voice. Easiest. Yeah. It's about 40,000 words. It's, you know, pretty standard. chapters are really I was like, I wanted to write a book about that I would want to read, which is short chapters. So it's a bunch of short chapters that and it's like it's easy, man. Story lesson, story lesson, story lesson. I want to read, which is short chapters.
Good.
So it's a bunch of short chapters.
Well, thank you, Jorge, very much.
Yeah, thank you. You're the best. Yeah, reporters and newscast podcasters out there, take notes.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya. Thank you.